structure started, we're hoping in the next 6 to 8 months, 6 to 12 months, that we'll be able to expand it. So eventually we're gonna include people who have been in early release programs, people who are on probation, and we want to do some form some groups within the prison system. So they're an advisory, we're looking at them as an advisory group to the legislative committee because we thought that that was a good place that we have access to the voices. So once a group establishes itself, we're going to be looking for people within the group who are willing to testify at the legislature, who are willing to work with the DOC and other corrections agencies on policy discussions, and just doing programs, being able to do public speaking, to share the story, what they've learned, and that success after involvement in the criminal justice system is possible, and the majority of people fit that category. So if anybody is interested, because everybody who becomes a member of the Full Circle Advisory Group will need to apply and have a referral. So I'm looking at that. You all have good resources for knowing some good candidates. I do have just a couple copies.
Yeah, I have an additional one. I didn't print out one for everybody, but
Oh, yeah.
anybody, would anybody like a copy of what the proposal is?
And then if you,
You do?
I'll
So,
just have the ones I have, and otherwise you can give me your email address.
yeah, I can mark that on here.
Okay.
So if you don't get one and you want one, let me know so we can get it to you.
And we are looking right now, the work group that's been putting this together, we're working on the application form, referral form, and then we're going to be setting out the rollout to solicit for the initial startup group. So if that's anything you're interested, my email address on the end of the proposal. Please feel free to send me any feedback, what kind of interest you have, and then
Good.
we're hoping to get it started for January, so this legislative session, which is also exciting. We might get something done this session, but 47 new faces in the legislature. So we are also going to be working with MCA membership to get people to know their legislators. And this is the time, this is going to be the time of the year for us all to really get out there, get to know our legislators, and make sure they understand what's important to us in Washington.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it.
My name is Bob Mader. I'm the executive director of a ministry called Glory Bound. It was started over 2 decades ago, and it was aimed toward ministering to families impacted by incarceration and addiction. And that was geared initially to the women and the children of the men who had been in prison, the men who had been addicted, because that's where most of the attention goes, and the women and the children suffered silently. An update on Glory Bound comes from Ecclesiastes 3:1. For everything, there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven. With COVID and the passing of Sharon Thomas over the last 3 years, the ministry has suffered like many of yours may have. And it's a new season. And we believe that God is like Jesus calling Lazarus to come out, that he's bringing a new season of rebirth and transformation renewal to Glory Bound. And my involvement in R3, I'm looking for a couple things. One is ministries and organizations that work with men or women with addiction, incarceration background that would like to have their families impacted by a Christ-oriented ministry that could help the women, the children, and to bring the men together with their families. Second thing when I come here is I'm looking for resources because we want to be a clearinghouse for our families. At this point, we've had most basically Men for Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge, but we want to start looking for other organizations that could provide men and women that we could minister to.
My name is Diane Baker. I'm the Senior Administrator for Morgan Mountain Ministries. Bob said it all. Hello.
Hey,
Good to see you again.
yes,
I'm Bill Betzler.
I'm George Gibson, Executive Director for VNet, and we're launching a bunch of things, but one of the things I do want to announce is we do have a contract with the city of Minneapolis to provide some services. And so there's going to be some free OSHA training, OSHA 10 training. If you're a Minneapolis resident, we OSHA 10, we're going to do habits for success in the construction industry, free certification in that. I'm also doing some financial management in that week's training, along with some customer resume building as well if they apply. So if you've got some candidates from the city of Minneapolis that might want to receive some of that training, send me over email. We'll be sending a flyer out to the collaborative as well. One of the things that we're working with is working with R3 to begin to put some navigators around some of our candidates as well. So we're really enjoying the growth process with VNet. And also, if anyone knows of a good bookkeeper that's willing to do some QuickBooks or something like that, send them our way. We've got one of our maybe getting some services and that's at the end of the year. So we're looking for somebody that might be able to take that.
George, what's the name of your organization?
VNet, Reentry Network. And it used to be construction career training program. We're still under construction career training program. We're just a DBX. So VNet is.
So most of us have all heard of CCTP.
Well, yeah, David. Stricker, because we were involved.
Yeah.
This one's bringing her over here.
He used to be a tech though. Dave Stricker, because we were involved. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the website is reentrynet.com. The RENMN.org is currently not functioning for some reason, but reentrynet.com.
Hi, my name is Allison Alstrom, and I am really thrilled to be here today. I was invited by John and the team that I spoke to last week. Anyway, I'm with an organization called Unite Us. My job is to basically get to know all the community-based organizations across the region. I live here in the Twin Cities. Our company, try to get a super high level. We're a national organization. We're in 46 of 50 states. The goal is to build a bridge between health and social care. So you're like, what does that mean for us? You're providing social care as a community-based organizations, and some of the work you're doing in corrections, government, but if you imagine the silos that exist in the world today, right? We have healthcare, health plans and health systems doing work. We have government benefits, government programs, government corrections, whatever doing work. And we have all these wonderful community-based organizations, churches, and schools, and individuals just that are also out there trying to help. My job as a community engagement manager is to try to bring all those people into one space. And so we are building a nationwide database of basically resources where organizations say, this is what we do, and we want to join. And when you join, you're basically saying, I'm willing to receive referrals from my program. And I'm willing to also maybe use your technology to connect people confidentially with their consent to other programs. But the key to this is the bidirectional feedback. It's no longer telling someone who's in struggle to take a bunch of program flyers, good luck, go call this place. Instead, it's warm handoffs. And when someone's information is shared with another organization, the expectation that organization reaches out to that individual within 24 to 48 hours to connect with them to provide services. And in our web-based technology system, you make some updates, and then the people who are working with that individual become like almost a care coordination team. You get to all see who's working around that individual, and you get to know, did it get resolved? So when you send somebody out for a referral, did the organization pick up the torch and actually get that resolved for them? So that's the work that I'm doing. And so I'm just always excited to meet new groups, and came across John and the R3 Collaborative, and was invited to come today, and just really excited. I'm taking copious notes. I have business cards. I'd love to talk to any of you about your organizations and whether or not you would want to be a part of the network, so that we can, I just heard it, right? You're always looking to get people connected to services. So how can we give you a tool that will allow you to do that and actually track that, tell your story? For a lot of nonprofits, it's really important what data you have and how to tell your story. And that's one of the things that we want to support. It costs no money for community-based organizations to be part of it. And the way we do that is government benefits when people get connected to social care, and so does healthcare. And so we charge government and healthcare to be a part of the system, and they pay for it so that we can actually bring and build that network of community providers. No cost. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll take a breath and be done. Is that when you join Unitas and you're a community-based organization, you know, and we bring you on at no cost. It is the ability for you to elevate your programs to be known by maybe groups that aren't finding you. We do then allow you to be able to receive referrals, right, from government agencies and potentially healthcare. So we're working with United Healthcare, Alina, Gillette, and Children so far, and we're in contract conversation with a lot of others. And so the goal is that we create visibility for you all. And eventually, we also are hoping to create payment opportunities for you all. So how do we also create the pathway for payments to be made, for reimbursements to be made to organizations that are in theory filling a gap that's needed that would normally be able to be contractually reimbursed potentially by either healthcare or government. So I'll just give an example on the healthcare side. If somebody's diagnosed with diabetes, you get them connected with healthy food. Whoever's providing that healthy food, you know, healthcare is probably willing to pay for that healthy food because the complications of their diabetes are going to be able to be managed in the long run. That's going to be a financial savings. It's that preventative type care. We're trying to create those pathways back into community organizations, transportation things, you know, whatever that is. And so we don't get to do that until we have a funder come to the table and say we want to do it. But when we do have that happen, and that's trying to start to transform our communities, we hope to be that conduit that will ultimately allow again you all to get more resources and to be able to make your organizations thrive. So that's a lot.
Sounds great.
I'll
Take a
be
break.
quiet, but I'll stay and I'll network and.
I agree.
Absolutely. Thank you.
A lot.
It's a good thing we're recording this.
Hopefully you heard it.
I talk fast.
The navigator team is definitely looking very hard at.
Absolutely.
Houses. Thank you, Allison, for coming. Thank you for sharing. And of course, she'll be available during the pizza time too. So
Great.
covers a lot of ground. And then you ask questions.
Wow.
All right.
Short brown, very mass.
Thanks.
John, I'm just glad to be alive. Sinner saved by grace. Sorry about the phone calls. One was to get the recording going. We got that clicked, I think, and the other was to make sure the pizza arrived. So, that's two of
The important calls.
Right? So pizza's on its way, and sorry for the interruptions and the rudeness. I apologize. As far as what in the world, you know, we are excited to say that I'm talking to Mexico frequently now, every week, and then Oaxaca, Mexico, and Hector, which Bob knows. Because Hector was incarcerated here in Minnesota as an illegal immigrant. I can't call him alien because he is kind of different.
What's Hector's last name?
Hernandez. Well, depends. That's one of his aliases. So Alvarez. Okay. That's his legal name, but not in the state of Minnesota. But that being said, he's a changed man. He's been in prison ministry now 17 years in Mexico. And we're able to get behind him. It's been a 2-year process. Homeland Security is finally approved RAIN to support, those in outside our borders. So we're not a terrorist organization finally. So, some people think I terrorize them, but really I don't. I just pray for them a lot. If they need prayer, look out. I'm just glad to say, we are excited for this group. We're excited for everyone and what you're doing. It's very much needed. Thank you very much. And let's just keep going. How much more time do I have?
Hey, John, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Will Hector be working with guys that were in prison in the US and then wind up back in Mexico?
Eventually.
Is that, okay,
So when you're deported from Minnesota, so you serve your time, you then will have an option through RAIN to go to a site where you don't have to start working for the cartel.
wonderful.
That's the objective. Right now, he's been heavily involved. PF has been helping them with Spanish Bibles. We've been sending them 12 seats books, and I hope this isn't pizza. So yes, that is the objective, and that's just gonna complement what he's already been doing for the past 17 years, and that's pre and post prison ministry in Mexico.
Great. David?
Patrick David Springer, I'm currently working with Ray Homes, John, Mary, Bill, Steve, and working on my house. Coming along good.
In his spare time.
Yeah. Thank you.
My name's Ernest Stellingworth, and I'm new to this group, new to the area. I quit my corporate job a couple months ago in Seattle, and my wife and I moved here for the weather.
And you're getting plenty of it.
And
We came through, didn't we?
wait to be here till December. Yeah, and so just found well, really feel that God led us to Hastings, to church there. And not connected with any organization yet. The reason I quit my corporate job was to use my coaching skills in whatever arena God places me. This is one of the doors that God has opened up. So I'm just moving forward and seeing what transpires from that. Also working with Rise Up Recovery in Hastings, addiction recovery ministry, and looking for opportunities there as well to coach and mentor people. Better lives. That's where I want to be. So
Great, welcome. Nice to have you here today.
I'm Pastor Dwight Anderson. I'm the director of Prison Mission Association. So if you like my card, I got my card, and we're also a good friend Ron Anderson who donated his book to our ministries, when we're now the publishers. So PMA just published a new book here in September, so I got plenty of copies here. If you want extras, if you want more for your ministry, let me know. It's a really good book. As far as PMA, we provide free Bible for sports. I got a couple of samples here. But if you do any correspondence with inmates or going into the prisons, you can send them this one-page one, and that basically gets them enrolled in our program. Then you get college credit for doing our courses. And the good news is I got contacted from Stillwater, maybe you guys all do, but they're going to have the transition period starting up again.
And if you don't get in right away, you will not get in because they're limiting how many can come. Whereas before, they always accommodated. If you could come, they made room for you. We were in different rooms and all over the place.
Yeah, and I'm limiting one cheaper, cheaper. I used to have about 6 or 8. So
Things are different, but they're opening it up. Praise the Lord.
yes, that's the good news. So yes, if you need information on the transition period, you can contact me to do all that. But yeah, it's Stillwater. I'm assuming other prisons will start with the transition.
I'm sure they will, but I know they're still battling with COVID and outbreaks, and so those are still issues for them. So, but fortunately, that'll come up in March. And if you do want to be there, like Dwight said, get your name on the list. You could probably get in touch with I don't know do you know who's managing it out of Stillwater?
It's Nicole.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the info. I can email to you. Got the forms. They got more forms like 4 months.
I can see if maybe we can get something on the R3 website too, if we'll get the contact information and so on. Okay, well, that's great. A couple of things. I see, well, Ken, you're going to be our featured speaker, so I'll give way to the podium here in just a minute. But just one other quick update with Mary mentioned the subcommittee on the legislative committee at MCA. We do have a community supports committee that's up and running. John is on that as well, and that has expanded now. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or 13 members, and we're going to continue to expand that committee. And that committee has agreed to essentially take on the MCA spring workshop. And what we're looking at doing, Mark Groves is the incoming president for MCA. Many of you know Mark Groves. We're looking at putting together a spring workshop slash a networking of a variety of different folks. We're looking at the mentoring programs. We used to do the Midwest Mentoring Collaborative on an annual basis until the start of COVID. So we're looking at maybe a component of that workshop having a mentoring component as a part of that to kind of get people back into mentoring, because we know that's diminished, over time here with COVID. And so we're trying to get that restarted. But there are corrections members on that. And my whole focus or purpose has been to get the corrections members, the professional folks on the correction side, meeting with the community support side and actually having a dialogue about what's needed, what's working, what's not working, what we could do together collaboratively to strengthen those community supports. And there's a lot of interest in doing that from the correction side. One of the folks that we were able to get targeted onto that committee is out of the hearings and release unit at the Department of Corrections. So when we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,900 people a year going back to prison for violations, we had a lot of people coming in for new probation violations on top of that. Looking at ways to strengthen community programs and alternatives to be there for those individuals rather than putting them back in prison for 60, 90, 180 days of dead time and then coming out and having to restart all over again. So that I'm pretty excited about getting that up and running. So we'll get more information out to folks as we get that spring workshop pulled together. So
You want to invite, so if they want to participate to the Tuesday, December 6th, 9 to 10.
Yep.
See you, Andrew.
Get me an email address and we can get you on that meeting. We're doing those as Zoom meetings. Just because we do have people coming from a broad area around the state. So without any further interruptions or information, I want to introduce Ken. Come on up. You can take the mask off now. Ken's with Goodwill, and he was so graciously offered to host the meeting here today. And I'm just going to let him introduce himself and his role here at Goodwill and to give us an update on what's all going on at Goodwill. And like you mentioned, when I came in, it's been a challenging couple of years with COVID. So I'll turn it over to you.
Ken Saradikov, and I'm the one who's really not going to make America great again. No one person can do that. I don't care what. Okay. I'm at Goodwill. I've been at Goodwill for the past 9 years now. Before that, I was at Volunteers America. As social service coordinator, just pretending the community was aware that there was a presence of men and women in their living facility that were in their backyard. A lot of people have been living there for 20 years, never even knew that it existed. Before that, I was at why this is what happens when you get older. It just comes here and it flies through. I was working and prison with I'm saying oversee, but what's the faith-based thing at Lino Lakes? IFI, yeah, I forgot because they changed their name. I was at IFI. Before that, I was a pastor and I got involved with working at Moose Lake my second year in Cloquet about 20 years ago, and realized I may have been misdirected in my calling. My wife and I walked through the building, and she's an accomplished musician, so she plays and sings. And all the men that we work with, we said, man, these guys could be our boys. But by the grace of God, it's not us. And so I've been on this road for past 25 years, kind of doing it a voluntary and kind of quasi ministry thing. It's interesting when I work here at Goodwill, you can't do the religious thing, but no one knows what happens behind closed doors. I'm sure as all of us know that. You didn't hear that, HR, did you? But Goodwill has been under a journey like a lot of you guys have been in your business the last 2 years. This whole building was filled with an aspect of Goodwill called services and programs. And now 3/4 of those people are now working from home, and only those that are direct client related are in the building. So we've been moved into a facility up the front, and all the rest is going to be filled with Goodwill stores, information, office people. So we've kind of spread ourselves out a little bit. I happen to be one of the ones that working with clients every day. I work with a program, a contract with the program with the Department of Corrections. I'm trying very hard not to use the word acronym. I don't like DOCA for. I work with Opportunity for Change, which is known as Oversee, which kind of fits in what you were talking about, Ron. They had obviously a little setback with COVID because at the time it was real interesting. POs, when they check on their boys, they'd say, okay, send me a picture in front of your address. And they sent a picture when they were home. And a lot of times that home was not their home or not the home that day. So they're looking for ways to redirect. So they're looking at Opportunity for Change to kind of be a new avenue of what's the word when you reschedule person, redirect, restructure. There you go. Got to get the right typical word. So they're looking at using Opportunity for Change and a restructure. The problem right now is that Opportunity for Change works just with men and just with men that are ISR and just on that high caliber to turn around the door. So my job with Opportunity for Change is just employment only. I would encourage, if you have any employment leads, I'm always willing to go to the employer and talk and find out. In the past, I've worked with Dave in the past when he was working at Tech Dump, which is now Repowered. So now we're working with Tim at Repowered and trying to find a way to do a collaboration with them. So that's kind of where my section of Opportunity for Change and Goodwill is. I also have a partner that I work with, Jake Nowak. He used to be at RS Eden Reentry West Side. And we were so fortunate to be able to snag him because he has the terminology and ability to work with Department of Correction folks. So it's been great having him on with us. So we're looking now also as well as to expanding how we could do more in reentry. In the past, before COVID, that's been the famous phrase now, before COVID, we had a great program, and that men and women, when they got out, they could come here and we'd put them to work in the warehouse. That kind of went south with COVID. And you know how when COVID happens, you get new employees, and something happened in HR and that whole connection got kind of changed a little bit. So we're working with our current HR and actually with Repowered, trying to get their HR to talk to our HR to say, it's okay to work with men and women from backgrounds. Because we technically don't hire men and women with backgrounds, which is ironic. We have a reentry program, but you can't work here. Yeah, the brother gets it right there. So we're looking at trying to find one way to be first honest, second have integrity, and believe in what we say we do, because our mission is to eliminate the barriers of independence. But as you know, when you're talking to certain HR people, that the barrier is just not allowed. So we have a plow down in the snow trying to move all the garbage out of the way, so eventually we can do that. So I'm just sort of opening up my heart right here. I'll probably have a discussion with the CEO tomorrow about this conversation, but we're on a good road moving forward, we're hoping. We're also looking at a couple of other grants where we'd be working with DEED. Right now we have another grant where Jake is working with, where men, when they come out of prison, if they need to be a father, we connect them with the Father Project. And if they get a job deed will pay them a $500 paycheck on their first paycheck. So we've learned not to tell that to the men the very first moment they come in, but we tell them there's a stipend that you'll get when you get your first job. So that's a grant that we had extended through the year. We're hoping that'll help, because that's a great tool for our men and women coming out of prison. And that's the other thing we're looking at. The missing link is in the past, we've had federal grants which have allowed to work with females in Shakopee. Recently, our past grants have not allowed that. So we're looking to move away from that and trying to find a way with working with women coming out of Shakopee and the federal prisons, because that's just a missing hole. It's just, I'm getting calls all the time from ladies wanting to get help, and I refer them to organizations, but it just hurts my heart that we don't have something here. So we're in the midst of looking for grants to be able to do that. So that in a nutshell is basically what's going on with Goodwill. Things are looking better than they were a year and a half ago with the stinking COVID, but hopefully now, just those of us that had it recently get to share this wonderful thing when we're walking around the campus. Other than that, everything is good. Any questions, thoughts, tomatoes? Dr. Henderson.
We still equipping men and women in the automotive field, construction field.
Yeah.
And I know that's not your specific area, but that's still active, right? So, but we're down to 3 programs. How many programs, how many training programs?
The ones that would fit specifically for men and women coming out of prison would be construction, which they don't have to have a GED, which is a nice format. It's 6 weeks in building a house inside a warehouse, and then the last 6 weeks you go out and you actually work on doing construction outside. That's still open, and there's a number of companies that are what's the new buzzword? It's not socially justice impact. That's, I think, just like the word man and woman has changed, so is men and women coming out of prison. So social justice impact people. And all the other one is automotive. And that's I believe a 8 or 10 week course. And they also have connections with a number of organizations that work with men and women coming out of prison. So yeah, those are the 2 programs that are, we have another 1 or 2, but it's impacted by criminal activity, can't get in. So that's kind of where we steer them. Yep.
For one of these programs, where's the necessity, or is there a necessity for the individual to have their own transportation?
Yeah, it's highly encouraged with construction, because when you get out, you got to get your license. So they highly encourage you to do that. They cannot get into the automotive class unless they have their driver's license, because when they graduate, they go to a garage and they have to drive from point A to point B. So that's required. So they say, we can't let you in the class until you do that, because we found that the guys and gals are saying, yeah, I'll get it, but they don't get it. So it's a requirement to have. Yeah.
Do they have to have a GED for automotive?
Neither one. Yeah, which is a nice thing. That's kind of the thing above when we look at some of the other organizations don't have to have a GED, so it makes it a little bit nicer. And it's income related, so most of the time our guys and gals that come are going to be able to fit in that category.
And just to follow up, both those programs are available for men and women.
Correct, both for men and women. In fact, they're screaming and crying for more women in the construction industry. So we have one gal, Jennifer Althouse, that was at Shakopee for a number of years, and she's kind of been a big spokesperson at Ramsey County. She helped be a pile driver for the Stillwater Bridge. So every time I go across Stillwater Bridge, I think about Jennifer, and her story is just great, because she came to us in a federal grant and needed help. And if you guys remember, a young man, David Marambo, was with us many years. He was her her counselor. And just a great relationship. Every time I see her, it's just hugs and good to see you. And then she's doing well, having a big 4-wheel drive truck and doing well. So it's great to see when success happens like that. Okay.
Okay, you mentioned you're going to work with O4C and that the primarily men coming out who the intensive supervisor release program or ISR.
Yeah.
What kind of specific challenges are you finding with that population? I mean, knowing that some folks are familiar with it, they're essentially individuals who have been determined or been essentially tagged as being highest risk to reoffend, and they're put on a higher level of supervision. Challenges that you're seeing, not just in working with those individuals, but with those that are providing supervision, the agents. What kind of things are you running into there?
Probably the two highest things are one, the participant or the offender, depending on how you want to say it, and the agent. Because they could be the best agent, but he had a bad relationship with the previous person, and all of a sudden that carries over to that person. So we're finding it really pays to have a relationship with the agent, not to soften up the requirements of the man, but it helps to just have a relationship. So we're working on that relational aspect, because a lot of the POs are now directly to a specific county. So they're not really familiar with the state program Opportunity for Change. So it's reintroducing ourselves to them. Like I had a meeting 3 days ago with the guy, got 6 hours waiting to be able to talk to the PO, and the participants' perspective of the PO and the PO's perspective, they were not even near the same. So I came in as an advocate saying, I don't want to soften, I know those requirements, blah, 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 but what can I do to help out? And he was kind of blown away, like, wow, someone wants to help out this guy. And we finally got through the process. Unfortunately, he had to be restructured, but he's still in the community and still having a good job and applying for jobs right now. The second thing is, as you all know, when COVID happened, there were companies that said, I'm not going to look at you if you have a background. And they changed from that to, please send me your people. That is changing now. I'm seeing the status change where the openness to allowing men and women with backgrounds is not as fluid as it was a year ago. It's really starting to tighten up. It's not back to where it used to be, but I think we're heading back towards that situation. So we have a position in Goodwill that she is, what's the person that goes to the state legislature? They don't bribe, they
Lobbyists?
There we go.
They do bribe.
They do. She's a lobbyist for many aspects of Goodwill, and that's one of the big things she's advocating, just talking to the legislators saying, hey, can we help do this process? Because it's a political as well as an emotional thing, have a guy, this poor brother, he's just been in that revolving door, and he looks like he's 25, but he's 39. And he just doesn't follow through. And so the last job I sent him to was a job I pleaded and cried to get him in, and he just didn't show up for work again. So it's difficult because our task of advocating gets beaten up sometimes by the guys that fall down, but we just got to keep reaching for that ring on the merry-go-round. Hopefully one of these days we'll get it, and all men and women will live in perfect peace and harmony in the world together.
Now that I don't want to follow. Do either of the two programs, the automotive and construction, there's no stipend at the beginning, but there is potential if they pursue it and show up explain just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then kicks in and that it's not full pay, but that
Right.
there's incentive to continue on. Go ahead.
See, this is why John is here, because he knows what I'm supposed to say. I just need 10 more phones, and that way I'll be more like John.
Hey, I resemble that.
Yeah, you sure do, brother. The way it works is like for construction, the first 6 weeks is a non-paid process. The second 6 weeks, you're doing labor, so you're out in the field, you're outside, and so they pay you a stipend by the hour. If it's St. Paul, they pay you St. Paul wages. If they're Minneapolis, they pay you Minneapolis wages for that period of time you're working. So usually it's like from 9 to 1 o'clock. So it's a part-time thing. So sometimes that's what's difficult with some agents. So it's just important to make sure if you're working with a guy that they know that. But the benefit of that is that they're working with their hands and they're getting paid. When they get out, good chance they're going to be able to utilize that for a job skill. The same thing with automotive. The first 4 weeks is book learning, and the second 4 weeks is hands-on stuff. So, yeah, good. Thank you, sir.
Second 4 weeks, hands-on paid.
Yeah. And so it'd be here, so it'd be St. Paul wages. It's kind of ironic, St. Paul and Minneapolis doesn't have the same minimum wage. But that's just the way it works. Welcome to politics.
We just got through that.
Yeah. There's really 40-something new legislation, people. Wow. Okay, this is time to shake, rattle, and roll, man. Yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it.
There's no excuse now about the bipartisan issue.
Right.
There's no tea,
Right.
how serious they are.
Are we predominantly Republican, Democrat? Where are we?
We're right in the middle.
Really?
Yeah.
We're independent. We're with Jesse's.
What was Jesse's?
No, did you get the reaction?
Yeah. But look at what he did. I mean, this light rail wouldn't exist without that brother.
What do you mean? He's the only one that offered a balanced budget right off.
I know. Okay, we're getting really political now.
He did, so. The Lord works in mysterious ways. All right.
Say, just going to mention, we had 2 other people, well, one dropped off, Pastor David Henderson was online. And then we have Janet Fisher and Julie Allen online here. I don't know if you can do anything, George, just to bring them up for.
So they can introduce themselves.
Let's see if we can do
Let me
that.
see if I can get my speaker on.
Ken, you're out of the book. No,
All right.
I need to find pizza.
All right, look, are they out there now?
So from up there, somebody, hey Jan, I see you're unmuted. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, you bet. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you today. My name is Jana Fisher, and what great information to receive from all of you. I worked at the Shakopee Women's Correctional Facility from 2009 to 2014. And John, I remember meeting you and working with you with Rain Homes. But my job there as program manager, we had a memo of understanding with the Minnesota Department of Corrections. And my job there for the 5.5 years that I worked there was to run a reentry program, helping the women build plans to reenter in employment, in their homes, just, you know, society overall, and worked with the case managers closely, worked with RS Eden at times. And so it's fun. It was fun to listen to Ken talking about, we've got pieces that cross over. So I was the one who asked for your information, Ken, to contact you. So I will probably be doing that. But for the last 6.5 years now, I've been running my own business called Fisher Reentry Consulting. So I work with organizations, agencies, community colleges, all working in the realm of reentry. And so whether people have been formally justice involved or coming out of homelessness, coming out of treatment centers, really whatever the gamut, I work with nonprofits as well. And so I help people like many of you, to get employment, to get housing, to get back on their feet, to help remove barriers and obstacles. So I would be with you today, but I'm recovering from a hip replacement surgery. But I am so thankful and grateful to be with each of you today on Zoom. It's just a great opportunity to still be involved. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me, and thank you for giving me that opportunity. It's great to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jana.
Julie Allen as well.
Yeah, just get ready to pivot. Oh, she's gone. Oh,
She wanted to stay on this.
How about Crystal? Crystal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm Crystal. I work with churches and religious nonprofits in communications. So I work with R3 and Doreen, and just trying to make sure things are going well behind the scenes today.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thanks, Crystal. Crystal helps us with communications.
With that,
So we lost.
I think we lost Julie. Got me a step away.
Okay.
So with that, we have pizza coming.
It's up, it should be up front.
Should be up front. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today, and we're gonna have a little pizza, and there's beverages here, and we can visit and.
And just, again, a reminder, did you remind me about the restroom? Restroom is just down the hall.
But remind me about the key.
The key is being used right now, but you need the key to get back into the building from here.
You get in there without the key, you can't get out. Well.
Right.
So you
gotta
get
go
into the
go in a hurry, but.
If you want to come back and join us, make sure you got home by guards. Which normally ain't on the side of the door, but Steve Peterson is using the facilities and has the key card. So in other words, don't go out to the restroom without the key card that's usually hanging on the side of the door on the. Okay,
All right.
That's it. We're gonna wrap it up, and when Ken comes back, we're gonna give him a big round of applause. How's that sound?